Did you ever see the cartoon for Mighty Ducks, where they were actual ducks that fought a dragon from space? But they still played hockey.
There's like so much in that sentence I cannot comprehend. Welcome back to Cartridge Based Radio. How you doing, Brad?
I'm alright.
And we are joined by Mark, Sonic expert.
Hey, how's it going?
Going good. Alright, so since I mentioned Sonic, we're actually going to talk about Sonic, and you probably read that when you downloaded the show.
You're talking about the restaurant, right? With the chili dogs?
Yes, well, you are the expert, so I want you to walk us through all 31 shake flavors and which ones are the best.
I'll be honest, I've never actually been to a Sonic. I've lived in both Los Angeles and Boston, and I've seen ads for them, but I've never actually seen them, which makes me think there's some kind of conspiracy.
I lived in Tennessee for 5 years, and I am here to tell you they are real and they are bad for your heart.
In a literal sense, but they're also good for your heart in a more metaphorical way.
Yes, you're spiritually fulfilled as you're vomiting.
Which sounds like the later Sonic series.
Hey, Donald, why do you think it is that we just can't get a sponsor for this show?
I think it's because we are too good looking. It's a guess. All right, so Brad, before we dive into Sonic, we got some feedback, and since we're on that hefty delay, this is about our Metroid episode. The feedback I got on Twitter was, incompetent, genocidal space bounty hunter Samus is the best Samus.
Well, I like that. I'm not used to getting feedback on something I've done game-related and hearing incompetent and not having it directed towards me. So that's nice.
I mean, we are painfully incompetent doing this, so it is nice. That's from Timothy Weedle on Twitter.
Okay.
He's Canadian.
That's fine.
I don't know how that... I mean, that's probably why we didn't get insulted.
That was actually a sick Canadian burn.
When I was a game reviewer and I wrote a negative review of Metal Gear Solid 3, I got plenty of email from Canada, and it was not nice. And it shattered a lot of stereotypes that people might have about that country and its politeness.
All right, Brad, listen to this carefully. Metal Gear Solid 3 is terrible.
Okay, well... It's not that brave of you to say that now.
That's true. I mean, we're doing a classic game show, so...
Yeah.
The theme song is pretty sweet, though.
I'm wearing suspenders and no shirt.
Sure.
My normal day look, so I can get behind that, but the rest of the game, no. Alright, so let's talk about Sonic.
Okay. So... Sonic the Hedgehog, not everybody remembers this, but it was not a launch title. The Genesis had been out for a couple of years. It was sort of like dark matter. Like, you could prove that it existed, but nobody had actually ever seen a Genesis. And then they decided that they needed kind of a flagship mascot-driven game, and... Sonic was the result. I believe it was a 1991 release, so the Genesis had been out like 2 years at that point. And it became the pack-in game, replacing Altered Beast. There may have been, an interim where it was like Altered Beast and something else, or Altered Beast and no game, and then Sonic. But yeah, when I got my Genesis, I got the Sonic version. So Sonic and NHL Hockey, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, those were my first Genesis games.
Yeah, I had a Super Nintendo, but my cousin had a Genesis, and that was the first time that I started playing Sonic. And I remember playing the Genesis before Sonic came out, and all he had was Altered Beast, and it was terrible. And I think he had Pit Fighter, which was like a weird fighting game. Oh. Like the FMV of a guy pumping iron was the only cool thing about it.
Well, there was one other cool thing, which was that after you won a fight, you would stand on a forklift and people would throw money under you, and the forklift would lift up based on how much money people threw at you.
Wait, so you were like working in the back of a Target or something?
That was the fighting pit.
I've tried to ask for help at Targets before, and I imagine that reason I never got help is they were in the back pit fighting.
Well, here's a weird thing that happens to me is I don't go to Target that much, but just sheer coincidence, every time I do go, I'm wearing a red shirt and tan pants, and people keep asking me questions.
You think you'd get to the point where you consciously look down before you walk into Target and say either, I'm good to go, or, oh, nope, not today.
I own one red shirt. I'm wearing it right now. This is the only one I have, and somehow I wear it, once every laundry cycle, and I go to Target rarely, but it always lines up.
See, I just go to pontificate. I just go there dressed like that, waiting for someone to start the conversation. Which TV should I get?
That's actually, you'd probably get better advice from someone who doesn't work at Target on what TV to get. We are just...
What, you are just burning all of your corporate sponsorship.
Oh yeah, Target just called yesterday. They're like, we got to get in on this. You have 22 listeners. Also, thank you, 22 listeners. We love you.
But going back to the pre-Sonic days, like I remember putting in Sonic for the first time and just how beautiful it was. Just like what a transformative experience it was.
Yeah.
Just seeing the bright colors, the cool music, like little animals bouncing everywhere.
And it had so much attitude. Just Sonic's tapping his foot.
Oh, yes. Oh, compared to Mario.
Yeah, I remember we bought the Genesis with Altered Beast, and me and my brother couldn't figure out why we had gone from PC to console for this. And then the Genesis was sort of stowed for a while until Phantasy Star 2 and Sonic showed up, and then it was a much played system. But that first Sonic game back then was beautiful, and it was fun, and it was fast, and I could make fun of everyone with Mario for having a slow character. Felt good.
Yeah. Part of the beauty of Sonic is just the way it's designed. Really encourages going fast because a lot of the levels have multiple tiers, so that if you're on the top one and you miss a jump, you'll land in a middle one and you can keep going. The way your health works is you collect rings. If you get hit, you lose your rings, but you don't die unless you jump in a pit or something. And you can get those rings back. So it doesn't punish you for rushing through the stages quite the way that a lot of other games would.
I've been playing through the Sonic series with my young daughter recently, and I also showed her Mario, and I was surprised how much easier it was for her to pick up Sonic. Part of it is you only need to press one button to run, whereas Sonic requires, like, gripping the controller to hold down two buttons. But also, when Mario jumps, he is incredibly vulnerable unless he lands directly on an enemy. Like, if you jump just a little too late, that Goomba is going to just take a bite out of your shin. But Sonic, the moment he jumps, he is a whirling blade of death, killing anything in his way.
The mental image of a Goomba just grabbing Mario's leg and just ripping a chunk out. Mario's like, oh no!
Oh, it looks cute and all, but can you imagine like an actual mushroom rolling around with fangs and a face?
You are going to get an infection from that bite.
That's okay. The Goomba was penicillin.
That's the secret. They were the good guys all along.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of Sonic is the Genesis controller has 3 buttons. The A button jumps, the B button jumps, and the C button jumps. It's wonderful.
What did the B button do again?
It jumps.
Wow. Sonic, the world of. Dr. Robotnik has a plan to do something.
Okay, can I go first on this because I know nothing of the Sonic mythos. So whatever interpretation I have is based purely off of what I've seen happen in the game. I didn't read the instructions. I didn't read the back of the box. I just popped that sucker in my Genesis and went to town. So as far as I can tell, this is about some kind of like mutant blue hedgehog who is at war with the animals of the forest, and they've all armored themselves. They put themselves in tanks. They've created like hornets with cannons, anything they can do to stop Sonic from just like rampaging through their areas. And, you know, there was one place where I jumped on a spiked caterpillar, and the baby seal that was inside it was so desperate to get away from Sonic that he hopped into a pit of lava. That's how scared he was of Sonic. So, as far as
a kid, I did not realize those were seals. I thought they were really ugly worms, because seals generally aren't like 4 inches tall.
There's some genetic mutation going on in that forest. There's probably a chemical plant up the road or up the river.
Sonic is ridiculously taller than every animal around him. There are bears that come out of those robots that are the like size of his ankles.
So Sonic is 7'6".
It's like a shack-sized hedgehog has declared war on the forest.
Sonic Foo. Okay, so Dr. Robotnik has a plan to do something that involves giant metal cages with a button on top that's attached to dynamite to blow the cage open. Not sure what those are. Sonic and him are fighting about it, and then there's emeralds.
And the thing that bothers me about the emeralds is they literally have nothing to do with the game. Like, if you win and you don't get all the emeralds, Dr. Eggman gives you this, like, weird smirk and is juggling the emeralds like, ha, 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 I've got these. But they never explain what he's going to do with it. Like, you never see any robot or machine he's got that requires the emeralds. And Sonic doesn't even go supersonic in the first game. So it's just like some weird knick-knack that he's like, ha, you may have beaten me, but look at my shinies.
I was so furious the first time I beat Sonic, because that's a tough game. It seems easy at first, but it's stingy with the extra lives. And the continues are pretty hard to get. And when I finally beat that game, and all of a sudden I just have this screen where he's laughing at me and juggling his diamonds. I was, and then it's just like, try again? I was so upset.
Yeah, and then you do get all the diamonds, and then he's just jumping up and down at the end, really angry that you took all his shiny stones.
Maybe it's like a pro wrestling thing where everyone wants the belt, but once you get the belt, all you have is the belt, and it doesn't matter to anyone except you.
It's the moral victory. So the instruction booklets, unless I'm wrong, say it's like, well, Dr. Robotnik is trying to use the power of the Chaos Emeralds to take over the world. But as I say, we never see how. And more importantly, we never see him with them until you get the game over screen. As far as I can tell, the emeralds are in another dimension that only Sonic can reach. So it's like this Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone thing, that if he just left the emeralds where he did, Eggman would have never gotten them.
I mean, he's a 7'8" stupid hedgehog. We can agree. So I did some research on Sonic the Hedgehog because I was always curious about one thing.
Was Safe Search on?
No. Straight up image search that. Does anyone here know how fast Sonic runs?
Well, according to the theme song, at the speed of sound.
That would make sense.
He runs 300 miles an hour. So,
okay.
A sonic boom.
My tail.
It's
in that game, you never go even remotely that fast. In all the cartoons and such, they're like, oh man, it's a sonic boom whenever he runs. When you play the game, you're like, I'm running faster than a jog.
It's
Sonic the Jogger.
It's a power jog. No, that's not even half of a sonic boom. So, I mean, to break the sound barrier, you have to go 726 miles an hour.
Well, I mean, if it makes you feel better, in Sonic CD, he can run faster than time itself.
Literally every comic book character can do that, so that's not terribly impressive. When I was little, I thought Tails was lame. It's like, who is this fox who can keep up with the fastest hedgehog alive? And he's just like, he's not even trying. When I was replaying it, I realized Tails is a mechanic, and that is like 100% cooler than what Sonic is. Tails built a plane. Sonic runs fast. Tails is cooler than Sonic.
Yep. Tails actually built a jet-powered airplane after it got shot down.
Okay, who's more famous? Usain Bolt or like just some guy who builds planes? Name a guy who builds planes.
Neil Armstrong.
No, Donald. Neil Armstrong was a jazz musician. He did not build planes.
Leonardo DiCaprio in the movie The Aviator. No, I'm not saying that he's more known. I'm just saying if you can build an airplane from scratch, you are cooler than a person who can run fast.
Wait. Now I'm just thinking of Tails as Howard Hughes, and the whole reason he wears those gloves are because he's a germaphobe.
Welcome to Cartridge-Based Radio, where things like this happen.
And the tornado plane is just stockpiled with jars of Tails' urine.
How do you think Sonic turns yellow?
Oh.
He goes off screen, and then he comes back yellow. Just saying.
I would be pretty scared of a fox who could fly a plane, and the plane was already decked out with jars of urine.
Let's not forget that this is a fox that can fly anyway. Like, he can just spin his tails and go flying around. At some point, he's like, you know what would be better if I had a jet-powered airplane?
It's overkill in a way. I mean, he flies to get into his plane, and then he flies his plane, and then he flies to get out of his plane. He's just showing off. And isn't he like 8?
Yes, he is 8. They never explain what happened to his parents in the games. Like, he's just this 8-year-old boy that Sonic keeps around as a mechanic for his plane. Like, at some point, you wonder if Tails' parents miss him. Sonic's like, get in the plane, we're flying to the Death Egg. I want to see my mom and dad again. Gotta go fast.
I think at one point, his mom and dad were placed into a robotic body, and then Sonic murdered them. He looked over, and there's a little baby fox, and he's like, oh man, I screwed that one up. You're my, I don't know what, brother, adopted son, whatever. And he's like, Mommy, Daddy. No, don't worry about it. Eggman killed them.
Yeah, it was the Eggman who did it. He spun right into them at high speeds, like he does.
What I want to know is, like, is this the Great Depression or something? Like, Tails is 8 years old, and he's already got a job as a mechanic.
It's a good profession. I mean, 8 years is a lot of time to go to trade college.
Wait, so are you saying this Sonic is some kind of Dickensian world where Sonic just picks up orphans to help him around?
They all have jobs already.
He's freeing them all to work in the factory, the Sonic factories.
Oh, the factories that Dr. Eggman builds.
I think Eggman and Sonic might be working together.
They're in cahoots.
Yeah, they're both going to do something.
Well, so speaking of Eggman's factories, what do they build? Because I know whenever they did the Dreamcast games, a lot of people are like, oh, there's humans in Sonic's world? Where did that come from? But you play Sonic 1 and 2, and you get things like the Spring Yard Zone. And, like, did Eggman build a spring yard that says, like, hope and other messages in the background? Or, like...
Yeah, that was really weird.
Like the Casino Night Zone, did Eggman just say, like, I'll build a casino with pictures of Sonic in it? That's my evil plan? Or is he taking over a casino and thank God a hedgehog ran by?
Sonic ran this horrible empire where he had casinos, spring factories, giant pinball machines, and Eggman's actually coming in to try to free the animals, and Sonic's having none of that. I think his only enemy is water.
Oh, yeah. It's his kryptonite. Here's what I don't understand. Sonic can breathe in space, but not underwater.
That's because there's more pressure underwater, squeezing on your lungs. It's not in space, so you're fine.
It's the bends that are Sonic's real problem.
He can't stand a bloody nose. I mean, you have a very rich history of games here. You have Sonic 1, 2, and 3, and then they add, I think, the most important character, Knuckles, who can climb walls.
He's the angry loner before they introduced angrier loners to the Sonic series.
Yeah, they just keep getting more and more emo as they go. The culmination is Shadow, who is the most emo.
Well, he's been through a lot, you know. He was genetically created in a lab because his girlfriend/friend had space AIDS, and he was supposed to be the cure. But because he was made in a lab, the government showed up and shot her and kidnapped him. So he was both her cure and her demise. And then he might have been a clone for a while.
Wait. What did you just say?
Those are the bullet points. Get it? Like the bullets in Maria, his girlfriend. Those are the bullet points of Shadow's backstory.
And then the metal hedgehog was...
There's been multiple metal hedgehogs. It's kind of a thing that Eggman does. He hates Sonic so much, he labors deep into the night making statues of him.
I bet he's got Dr. Wily on speed dial.
Well, you know they hang out all the time.
It's like, yo, he keeps beating everything, and Wily's like, yeah, I know it, man. These guys that are blue are invincible. I don't know what to do.
What should I do, Dr. Wily? Build a robot. I tried that. Build more robots.
Well, your problem is you're making a robot hedgehog to fight him. What you need is Bubble Man.
Robots stop these enemies 100% of the time. Eventually, it will stop them 100% of the time. Not yet, but soon.
I think Bubble Man would actually be pretty effective against Sonic, because when I was doing the underwater level, I jumped, and I was at, Wheel of Death, and I jumped into a bubble, and he stopped to grab the bubble, and made himself vulnerable, and like a fish tank swam up and killed me. So Bubble Man would probably be super effective against Sonic.
The frame of animation for Drink Air Bubble is one of the most disturbing things in this game, because he puts his arms out in a T-pose and then his legs at like 45 degrees, and then his mouth is just hanging open, and he's hanging there in like this crucifixion pose, getting air. You're like, Sonic, what do you... Air doesn't work like that, Sonic.
Best case scenario. You ever go to an aquarium or like a fish store and you see like the catfish that's cleaning the tank, and like sometimes it's cleaning like the wall of the tank that's facing you? That's what Sonic looks like when he's breathing air.
Totally. I was just going to harken back to the trauma as a child of watching Sonic drown. Because you had the music going do 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 do, and you that's the first time as a child you understand memento mori. We are all going to die, and then Sonic's life is snuffed out right in front of you as he drowns like Jason Voorhees.
And it goes boing, and you're like, why does it make only that noise underwater when he dies?
And then eventually they made Mario 64, and Miyamoto's like, I can up that. Now you can watch Mario slowly choke to death underwater in 3D.
And doesn't he do like the jerking and then just...
Oh yeah, no, you definitely see the death spasms of Mario. No more do, just like, oh my god, he's
killed
dead.
Yoshi so many times he deserves it.
Oh yeah, totally. He's got to... I mean, God... Bowser had 7 children, and then Mario just whirls in like a hurricane, destroying their castles and throwing them into lava.
Sonic has never killed one of Robotnik's children as far as we know.
As far as we know. Because God knows, Eggman looks like somebody the ladies would just love to shack up with. He just shows up in the Eggmobile, toot toot.
I'm going to go ahead and guess that would be a test tube situation. Like... You're my child now. He goes to donation sites and he's like, here you go, and eventually just tracks him down. He's like, ha! You will now work in the Mean Bean Machine.
Oh god, don't bring up the Mean Bean Machine.
Too late. Sonic 3 has a moment in it that, as a child, I thought was really weird. You're running along and an airship comes down and Eggman attempts to carpet bomb the entire world to stop Sonic, but he never thought to release the bombs after the bomb launcher gets in front of Sonic. And I remember when I was little thinking, this is just the worst plan, but you made the background look really cool and I wish I had it on a t-shirt. Why would you do that? Why?
But the thing that confuses me even more about that is, according to the plot of the game, Knuckles blames Sonic for his island burning. For some reason, Eggman shows up with the ship that drops bombs, and then Sonic runs by and he's like, oh yeah, you're clearly the bad guy here.
If only you'd been hit by one of those bombs and died, my island wouldn't have burned.
Fair enough.
we've got these gems that, are kind of pointless, but they're being stolen back and forth. We're burning down entire forests. It's just like that little tale that Alfred tells Batman in The Dark Knight.
Oh.
Robotnik just wants to watch the world burn.
So Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles are the story of the Death Egg, right? Eggman finally has an endgame in those, where he's built this giant floating ripoff of the Death Star. But they never really establish what it does. Like, they never openly mention that there's a laser on it or anything. So what's wrong with this? Like, are we sure that Eggman's not setting up some kind of international space station and Sonic, once again, is doing his guerrilla tactics on it?
The Death Egg is actually a planet much like the Death Star, and Eggman's trying to collect up all the peaceful animals on the planet, and then they're just going to move out of the orbit and be out of Sonic's reach. And just as it was about to come together, Sonic runs into space and destroys it, and they're all cast back to the planet to live with Sonic again.
I know you're messing with me, but that is the plot of Sonic CD, more or less.
I know.
It's probably not really even called the Death Egg. That's probably just some Sonic propaganda. It was probably, like the...
Unity Station.
Yeah, Unity Research Station. And, like Sonic's running some kind of equivalent of Fox News where he's just out there reading, it's a Death Egg! That is a Death Egg! And we're all going to be killed by it.
Knuckles was there to get the gems, which would power the Death Egg, air quotes, to move it away. And he gets them, and then Sonic somehow steals them back by running around and collecting blue balls and turning them red.
This is kind of like a sticky wicket for Sonic lore. Technically, there's multiple sets of Chaos Emeralds in Sonic and Knuckles. There's the ones that Sonic brought to the island, and then Knuckles just like uppercuts him in the face and steals them. And then there's Knuckles' set of emeralds that Eggman took from him.
Well, so they're not that special, actually. They're just... Who is making the Chaos Emeralds? Like, they're encasing pure chaos into crystals and producing them, and you're just picking them up at Walmart?
I mean, for all we know, maybe like echidnas lay them. They are the egg-laying mammal.
Sonic has Knuckles' children, and he uses them to go Super Saiyan.
So if these emeralds are made out of pure chaos, then, I mean, how do you do that? Do you go down to like a Chuck E. Cheese and just kind of hang out there and harness it all? What's that weird egg-shaped man doing next to the ball pit?
Don't worry, we've called the police. He's not here with any children.
I don't know. I just see him in one of those like little rocket ship machines that you put a token in and it rocks back and forth.
That gave him a brilliant idea for these machines he would fight Sonic with. I'm going to attach a wrecking ball to the bottom of this one. That will work. Can you fly while swinging a wrecking ball? I don't think you can.
Maybe the entire thing is just his fantasy at Chuck E. Cheese, because he's like riding around in these goofy cars and rockets as he's fighting a 4-foot-tall mascot character that's zooming around. All the little forest animals inside the robots are like little prizes from the prize corner. There's even like the casino night zone, which is just straight up an arcade.
He got into some really bad things right out of college, and he snorted something and ended up in a Chuck E. Cheese, and that is the entirety of Sonic the Hedgehog.
The dark ending to like Sonic 4 is just Eggman waking up on the floor of a Chuck E. Cheese. It's time to go home, sir. Mr. Robotnik, Dr. Robotnik!
He's covered in his own vomit.
A paramedic looking down at him is like, you can't go back to sleep. Just look at my flashlight. Look at my flashlight. He's like, what? I'm a doctor. No, I'm a doctor. We're being harsh on Sonic here. I think it deserves it. Because Amy, who is the Batgirl?
Rouge the Bat with breasts. She's a jewel thief secret agent that works for the government.
How do you know all this? Like, I played the second Sonic Adventure on GameCube, and I retained nothing from it.
So growing up, I loved the classic Genesis games. I played them. I thought they were fantastic. Once like Sonic 3D Blast came out, I was like, all right, this ship has sailed. I think I'm done here. And then when I got to college, I started playing like Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2, and it was just insane. Like, especially Sonic Adventure 2, the story about, like, Shadow the Hedgehog trying to destroy the world because his, like, chronically ill girlfriend was shot just felt so weird. I played them ironically, and I kept playing them ironically and learning more about how weird the story was, to the point that I realized, well, I guess I like this now. I played God knows how many hours of this.
At one point, didn't he turn into a werewolf?
Yes, he did. Because Eggman split the Earth open.
That's not a good idea.
No. He had a plan that involved breaking the Earth for some reason, and that turned Sonic into a werewolf. A stretchy werewolf.
Any geologist will tell you that's exactly what happens when the Earth breaks open, is hedgehogs turn into werewolves. I like that Sega managed to... They brought it full circle back to Altered Beast.
So, isn't he a werehog, though?
Yeah, they call him a werehog. You know, he was also the King of England for a while.
He's a hedgehog who then sees the full moon and turns into a werehog. They just add a word to his name, and he's suddenly scary?
Yes. Also, the weird thing is, werehog should be something that turns into a hog, but he's already a hog. He should be a hedge wolf.
I would think we're glossing over this King of England thing. I think we should revisit this.
Oh no, we were looping back to that hard. I just need to establish that he is a hedgehog who turns into a werehog, which is just another version of a hedgehog.
Oh.
That's like if I got bit by a human and then when the moon's full, I turn into a werehuman.
You would turn into Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four, but you call yourself a were-human.
That's the thing that blows my mind, is I could understand in the design room, they were like, all right, we want to have like all this wolf gameplay. Should we give Sonic a wolf friend? And they're like, no, maybe he turns into a wolf. But instead, they're like, all right, we want him to be doing this stretchy melee combat where he's slingshotting himself around. How do we explain why he can slingshot himself around? He's a werewolf. And then everyone's just too afraid to mention that's not how werewolves work.
Remind me again how he became a werewolf. Oh, the Earth broke open. Duh.
Okay, so that led into him becoming the King of England?
No, he became the King of England on a separate adventure. You see, Merlin's niece, I think it was his niece, might have been daughter, opened a time portal that sucked Sonic and a few chili dogs in. And she explained that King Arthur had become corrupted and evil and needed to be murdered.
So Sonic killed King Arthur?
Yes, and became the new King of England.
Okay, so Sonic went back in time, changed history, which would mean before Sonic 1, Sonic... What's that game called? Sonic and the Black Knight?
Yes.
Sonic is stupid.
So, here's my question. England's a real place. I mean, King Arthur's a legend, but England is real. And does that mean that Sonic also takes place in the real world in like some post-apocalyptic future or something?
Probably?
Is Sonic going back in time and becoming the King of England result in the dystopia that Eggman is trying to save?
Oh my god. That makes perfect sense. Because in the one where he becomes a werehog, even though they call it the Earth, he goes to like famous countries. And for some reason, they use like the generic drugstore name for these countries. So instead of like you're going to China, they call it, oh god, Ling Ling or something like that. And like when you go to America, they call it like Empire City. So maybe that's it. When he went back in time and became King of England, he completely changed the timeline. Everything went completely different, and it's become this dystopian nightmare.
They're like, what should we call this new landmass we found? Ling Ling. That sounds sort of racist. I'm a hedgehog. I can't be racist.
I'm faster than the speed of racism.
It tries to catch me, but it fails.
I'm just imagining, like, all the people of England, like, oh, I guess this is our king now. This gigantic 7-foot-tall blue hedgehog. We're taking orders from him from now on.
In these games, is Sonic as tall as, like, a grown adult human?
So they've messed with his height depending on games, but in general, he's supposed to be somewhere between 3 and 4 feet. However, there's the game that no one likes to mention, the one where he was actually making out with a human princess. And that one, they sized up Sonic and Shadow and the future hedgehog, known as Silver the Hedgehog, to be roughly about 5 feet tall. So it was less creepy when he was making out with her.
So I stopped after Sonic and Knuckles. Well, I played the adventure games, but what?
So they made a new game. I think it's called like Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, and it was for PS3 and Xbox 360, and it was supposed to be like the next of the Sonic Adventure, like heavily narrative themed games. And they redesigned everything. They redesigned Sonic to be taller, and they redesigned Eggman to look human. And if you can ever Google an image of this, it's kind of horrific. So he looks like a normal person with just like really fat hips, and instead of the buckles on his jacket, they're like weird air nozzles. And he just looks like a bald man with a big mustache. But they also gave him a Final Fantasy princess that he was interacting with. And the whole idea was this princess couldn't cry because it would release a demon. Actually, I believe it was a firebird monster thing that was trapped in her tears. And Sonic came around and taught her to love and have emotion, and then a demon that Shadow was fighting, named Mephiles, stabbed Sonic to death. And that made the princess cry, releasing the fire demon. Did I mention there was a future hedgehog who has telekinesis?
Question.
Yes.
How much drugs are taken at Team Sonic? Like, do they just have a big pile in a room and someone just goes and jumps on them, and then that person comes out and says, I have the next game. And whatever he says, they make that.
What's the new mechanic? Speed!
Not what you took. What's the new mechanic?
But the game was terrible.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and guess that everything after Sonic 3 was terrible.
No, I will defend. Some of the games actually had their moments. The one where he became a werewolf had its moments. The one where he went to Eggman's theme park in space to rescue the tiny aliens was pretty good.
What?
Also, when Sonic traveled back in time to hang out with Sonic from the Genesis era, that one was great, except for the NAF boss fights.
Sonic traveled back in time to meet himself?
Yes, they teamed up.
I've seen Time Cop enough to know that that is a bad idea. If you touch each other, you both melt.
Oh, no, it's just like Looper. In the end, you find out Dr. Eggman is just a tiny Sonic in a suit.
You keep saying things, and it keeps getting worse.
Okay, that last one wasn't true.
Okay.
It turns out that Dr. Robotnik and Dr. Eggman were working together.
Wait, Dr. Robotnik and Dr. Eggman are not the same person?
They are, but you had, like, the Genesis era one that, like, just wears, like, high-waisted pants and a yellow cape, and then the one that wears an actual flight suit.
A guy expected to come in here and, like, us make fun of Sonic, but we brought you in, and you literally just told us Sonic's plot, which kind of just makes fun of itself.
We're out of a job, Donald. I mean, Mark's just going to have his own podcast where he just describes the plots to video games, and it'll be 10 times funnier than anything we've ever done. And it'll have 25 listeners.
You're now our Shadow the Hedgehog. Are they friends? Like,
begrudgingly. Kind of like a Goku Vegeta thing at this point. Shadow gets angry and violent, but he's kind of a dark anti-hero at this point. And I mean, he and Sonic did save the world from the horrible plan that Shadow enacted to destroy the world, and Shadow gave his life to save it before he got better somehow.
Doesn't Shadow have Uzis?
Yes, he does pick up guns in the Shadow the Hedgehog game. They're not as effective as any other way of playing the game, but there's guns and you can pick them up. He can also steal cars, which are hilarious, because as I mentioned earlier, in this game, he's 3 feet tall. So for some reason, there's just like these Power Wheels versions of military vehicles parked around next to the real-sized ones.
I wonder if they're ever in like a storeroom looking down at these tanks like, this is really not a good idea for our military.
You got the metrics wrong. What are we going to do with these? Just leave them lying around the road.
So literally, this is Spinal Tap.
But with hedgehogs.
Yes.
Shadow's just like knocking little kids out of their Power Wheels. This is mine now.
And I haven't played it because I didn't buy a Wii U because I'm sensible. Wasn't there one on there where they gave Sonic a scarf?
Oh God, I don't talk about that one.
So there's a Sonic game so bad you reject its existence.
It is the only one that I have not played, and from what I understand, it's potentially up there with the one where he made out with the Final Fantasy princess as far as contender for worst Sonic.
So there's this Sonic game out there where he wears a scarf and presumably won't shut up about soccer, and it's so bad that even Mark hasn't played it.
His hands and feet are wrapped in toilet paper because they thought it would make him look more badass.
I mean, then if he needs to wipe, he's just got it right there.
They redesigned all the characters to make them more modern, and yeah, Sonic's got a scarf. Knuckles looks like he's just been taking steroids the entire time. He's huge. Tails has, I think, goggles, and Amy is wearing something other than like a red halter top. But they all have toilet paper on them. That seems to be like the thematic thing. They called the art director in, and they're like, how do we make sure we know they're all together? It's like, wrap them in toilet paper.
It's a Team Unity thing. Knuckles is like, I look really cool in the gym when I wrap my hands in tape. And Sonic's like, oh, we don't got tape, but we got this toilet paper. Close enough. Is Shadow in that one?
Yes, he is, but just because I didn't play it doesn't mean I don't know about it. He's kind of shoehorned in there. Like, at some point, they were like, oh, God. If people don't see Shadow the Hedgehog in this, Mark won't buy it. So he just shows up at some random point. He's like, I'm Shadow the Hedgehog, and you have to fight him. And then he's like, later.
You guys suck. I'm gone.
Yeah.
Wow. I learned more in this hour than I thought I could learn in an hour. And I'm not sure I want any of this information in my head at all.
We haven't even talked about, like, the Saturn racing game.
You know the racing game's supposed to be cursed, right?
No.
Oh, yeah. There's an internet legend that if you get an original copy of that game and play it, the Tails doll will actually come out of your TV and kill you.
It seems plausible.
This seems like a great release if you know a lot about Sonic, because you get to die.
And it's actually, like, somewhat legitimized in, like, the new Lego Sonic expansion for Dimensions, because if you put the Ghostbusters characters on, Sonic will actually straight up call out that the Tails doll comes out of TVs and attacks people.
Sonic is the ring.
Yeah.
He had the Transform racing game, and that's a decent game.
That is decent. I really like Transformed.
I have it on the Vita, and I enjoy it quite a bit.
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic or not with that comment.
I have a Vita, and I enjoy that game. No, I will fight people about the Vita.
Sony executives, mostly.
Yes. I'm like, give me more games. They're like, no, that thing, it never existed. Yes, I'm holding it. Never existed. It doesn't have a Sonic game, so it's not legitimate.
Oh, I actually bought the PSP specifically for the Sonic game. And that was pretty bad. And they actually made 2 of them, Sonic Rivals.
What? A Sonic game that's bad? No.
I know!
Sonic. Brad, we gotta decide, is he the good guy or the bad guy? I'm gonna say hard bad. Like, all the way bad.
You know, originally I thought maybe he was misguided. Had good intentions, but didn't understand that the robot suits were protecting the little forest creatures. But the more and more I played it, I think he's just straight up evil.
I mean, if you look at it, we've seen Sonic's friends, right? We've seen like Amy, Tails, like the little flicky birds that go around. We've never seen another human in the Genesis era around Dr. Eggman. And for all we know, Dr. Eggman's friends and family were killed by this huge hypersonic hedgehog that's just rolling through like a giant saw blade. Maybe his parents were like run down in Crime Alley by Sonic the Hedgehog, and ever since then, he's been trying to reclaim the forests.
Sonic is the bad guy, Eggman's Batman.
Yeah, I'll play Sonic's advocate here. There's no other humans that we see in the Genesis era other than Robotnik or Eggman or whatever. It's possible that he wiped out humanity by arming all these cute little forest creatures with their mechanized tanks and everything. So that like humanity was wiped out by caterpillar missiles and crabs that shoot lasers out of their claws. And Sonic is like trying to stop that.
I think there's just as much evidence that the Flickies killed off all the humans. Maybe there's this horrible woodland apocalypse where just one day, like, all the 3-inch tall seals just started clawing their way into people's windows and eating them in their sleep. And Eggman is the last survivor. He's able to keep them in these capsules to hold them at bay. And he's able to try to, like, pacify them by putting them in these robot suits to try to restore a nature that won't attack him. And then Sonic starts running around, freeing them all. Pretty soon they're going to be mauling Eggman and humanity will be gone.
So this is like a 10-way arm race.
Yes.
Yeah. It's mutually assured destruction all over this world. Well, with that joyous thought, I think we're going to bring this one to a close, Brad.
All right.
Mark, thanks you for joining us.
My
with
pleasure.
Your vast knowledge of Sonic. That would make me drink if I knew all that. I do know that now, so I gotta go get blitzed.
And now you have been cursed.
And I guess that's gonna do it for us. We will see you next time when we talk about things that are not Sonic the Hedgehog.
Well, yeah, I mean, he watched Dr. Eggman's niece get gunned down. Cousin get gunned down.